or the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of Guidance. Continuing with Pir-o-Murshid Ināyat Khan's discourses on meditation. Meditation may be regarded as consisting of two portions, the preparation and the performance. In preparing for meditation, one should try to guard against all undesirable thoughts, speech, and acts until the hour of the meditation. One should also sit in silence a little before the teacher arrives, watching the breath and keeping the mind as free as possible from thoughts of all sorts. Even idealistic thoughts are out of place in meditation. I'll come back to that. Of course, the preparation can continue until it includes the entire daily life. Then one can go on from that and identify meditation and the everyday life. This is its perfection. To accomplish this, Sufis repeat Darood, which is most helpful. I'll come back to that too. It tends at all times to restrain the nafs and uses the mind as the body is used. That is to say, just as there are certain hours for eating and others for abstinence from food, so there can be periods in which the mind is used for thought and other periods when it is not used. The ultimate aim, of course, is to elevate the mind to its Buddhic condition. The instructions on the cultivation of insight are also most important. The difference is that in developing insight, one may do it consciously, one may be watching the heart and its impressions, and thereby become responsive to the all-pervading spirit of wisdom. In meditation, one does not try to receive anything, but the purification of mind thereby often opens up the door to inspiration. At least it makes it much easier to receive impressions and to hear the voice which cometh constantly from within. The teacher can, by the power of presence, raise the pitch of the soul. The student does not surrender before the teacher in order to give special reverence to the teacher as a personality. It is for his own sake that the disciple lays aside his desires and his thoughts. He lays them before the teacher when he practices Fanafi Sheikh, while in meditation he lays them before God at all times, that is to say, whether the teacher is present or not. By meditation, one relaxes the mind so that it becomes recharged with magnetism. After a little practice, one feels it a little. After continued practice, one feels it more. Therefore, one gradually lengthens the time in meditation. One either meditates for the sake of resting and restoring the mind, or in order to receive impressions, that is, to develop the intuitive faculty. Meditation may be regarded as consisting of two portions, the preparation and the performance. In preparing for meditation, one should try to guard against all undesirable thoughts, speech, and acts until the hour of the meditation. One should also sit in silence a little before the teacher arrives, watching the breath and keeping the mind as free as possible from thoughts of all sorts. Even idealistic thoughts are out of place in meditation. So what he's talking about here is to empty oneself. to empty oneself of expectation, and even to empty oneself of the things one does to prepare for meditation. So there's a distinction here between meditation as a technique and meditation as a state. And the preparation for meditation is the technique piece, which is not unimportant. But if all one does is repeat a technique, it never gets to the point of releasing the technique to drop into the silence, then you can become very expert at a particular technique and never actually wake up. Of course, the preparation can continue until it includes the entire daily life. Then one can go from that and identify meditation and the everyday life. In other words, integration. This is its perfection. To accomplish this, Sufis repeat Darood, which is most helpful. So, parenthetical remark. The word Darood in conventional Islam means a prayer or a praise of the Prophet Muhammad. And whether through mistranscription or perhaps some peculiarity of the teaching that Ināyat Khan received from his preceptor, he's using the word Darood to mean a particular wazifa or mantric formula placed on the rhythm of the breath and repeated internally, basically continually. This tends at all times to restrain the nafs, which is true, and uses the mind as the body is used. That is to say, just as there are certain hours for eating and others for abstinence from food, so there can be periods in which the mind is used for thought and other periods where it is not used. So one of the things that happens when these meditative states begin to integrate with daily life is that the mind becomes quieter. And there are times, especially when the space in the mind is taken up in the internal repetition of a divine name or some formula, that the internal dialogue or internal monologue that most of us experience from as soon as even before our feet hit the floor in the morning to when we finally drift off to sleep, that internal process by which we maintain a big portion of our personal identity begins to quiet down and eventually to simply shut off. The ultimate aim, of course, is to elevate the mind to its Buddhic condition. So he mentions elsewhere that the pure condition of the mind is not thought, but simply mind. And the pure condition of the heart is not emotions, but simply heart. And those are the mind and the heart in their natural condition. And he makes mention many, many times throughout the body of his literary work how unnatural and artificial the life of humans in the modern age tends to be. The instructions on the cultivation of insight are also most important. The difference is that in developing insight, one may do it consciously, one may be watching the heart and its impressions, and thereby become responsive to the all-pervading spirit of wisdom. In meditation, one does not try to receive anything, but the purification of mind thereby often opens up the door to inspiration. At least it makes it much easier to receive impressions and hear the voice which constantly cometh from within. So when the mind is quiet and the heart is open, and as we would say in the 21st century, the nervous system is regulated, there's this vast expanse, like a mirror, of the heart in the heart, of the mind in the mind. And when that mirror is perfectly polished, or at least even somewhat polished, the things that don't belong there show up much more easily. And the impressions which don't properly belong to us show up much more easily. And it's much easier to tell whether those impressions are just random dross floating about the collective mind sphere, or whether they're actually information, whether they're actually inspiration, whether they're actually the intuition, which is actually a revelation of one's own spirit. So let's do a little work with that. So I'll begin with the sung zikr that we do from time to time. And we'll sing it together for a few cycles. And then you will be silent, but thinking the words. I will inhale and exhale somewhat noisily as I'm whispering them, so that you can pick up the particular way that it divides up on the inhale and the exhale. And I'll do that for a few times. And then we'll all be silent and breathing this zikr in and out in our own rhythm until I say to do something different. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allah, la ilaha illallah. 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 On the breath. Allah. Allah. Inhale, exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. In your own rhythm. Hearing a melody in your own head. When you're ready, on some next breath, to release the technique, breathing in your own depth of and tempo of breath. And stay centered in the heart. Stay in touch with whatever sensation might be left in you with the practice of the Sikr. And if you need to move, if you need to yawn, if you need to do anything, stay in touch with this, whatever sensation might have been evoked by the practice. Bring the sensation of yawning or moving into the sensation of the effects of the practice. And if there's some bit of movement or even thought that you need to attend to, begin it with an awareness of the effect of the practice and the niyat, the intention, to come back to the feeling of the practice in the next instant, as soon as your attention is freed up from the thing that you need to do. So one of the formulas in the standard repertoire of the Ināyat transmission is the combination of the divine names of Nur and of Alim. And so when we say Ya Nur, Ya Alim, it brings the light of consciousness, consciousness being ontologically light. bringing the light of consciousness, the light which is consciousness, into the alim of our own being. Alim being that inherent knowledge that every created thing has about being itself. So we'll do that a little bit. So I'm going to intone it with the harmonics a few times. And then we'll drop into simply repeating the words. And then we'll become silent and just notice what might have shifted. Feeling your heart. Feeling your mind and the texture of your thoughts. Inhaling, thinking mu, or exhaling, thinking yin. And just continuing impetus of the practice. When this practice takes root, creates a condition that is kind of mental floss. Very clear, uncomplicated, and very still. There's times that when the nervous system is adjusting to this kind of thing after the general hyperactivity and chaotic organization that most of us live in, one can begin to feel a little, well, it's something that the mind interprets as drowsiness, but it's not actually drowsiness. It's that the only time your ego is ever really out of the circuit is when you're asleep. And the internal racket begins to settle down, and the body ego begins to go, oh, I must be asleep, and you start feeling drowsy. So the skillful means with that condition is to try to maintain the thread of awareness with the condition of transparency and clarity and stillness in the heart. And sometimes the ego actually goes to sleep. And something deeper in oneself wakes up. Because the ego isn't taking all the oxygen. Another thing you can do is simply open your eyes. A little crack. Don't grab the environment with them. Just open the eyes enough that there's a little bit of light coming in through your eyelashes. And stay with the feeling of the practice. So at the risk of disturbing this atmosphere, if there's any questions, go ahead and ask them. If there's any comments, go ahead and make them. But be very mindful of not breaking this atmosphere. And if you don't think you can talk, then it's better not. You can answer the question offline. And if you want to go back to the internal zikr on the breath, this is a perfect time to do it. Amen.